Hey everyone, I did my case study on Kristen Gilbert. Kristen Gilbert was known as the Angel of Death. She was born on November 13th, 1967 in a small city of Fall River, Massachusetts. And she was raised by her parents, Richard and Claudia Strickland. Now, her mother, Claudia, she was a substitute teacher, and Kristen claims that her mother would beat her and that they would have a very abusive relationship throughout their life. But in 1974, Kristen's youngest sister, Tara Morgan, was born. Her family then moved from their Fall River house to a new house in a smaller city, Groton, Massachusetts. Now, Kristen did not have what you would call the best kind of childhood. And in her childhood, she moved out of her preteen years. She began to pick up characteristics of being a pathological liar. And I mean a pathological liar. And weirdly enough, she would try to convince her classmates that she was related to Lizzie Borden. Lizzie Borden was also from Fall River, where Kristen was born. And as some of you may know, she was acquitted of the axe murder of her father and stepmother. Now, to me, it's just kind of weird that you want to, brag about being related to this person, if she even was. I mean, I don't think anybody believed her, but I don't think this would be the main person I would be bragging on being related to. She would also fake suicide attempts in her effort to manipulate concerned friends and family members. She just wanted the attention on her, and the suicide attempts was given the attention she needed. And this trend would continue throughout her young adult life. And the drama and attention that it brought to her was all she was thriving throughout her childhood. She was also known to be very physically and verbally abusive to her boyfriends. And I mean every single boyfriend that she ever had claimed that she would just abuse them physically and mentally, and they couldn't do anything back to her. Despite all of this, Kristen was actually a great student. In high school, she made great grades and had a very high IQ. She even graduated high school a year early, so that says something to her grades. And she enrolled at Bridgewater State Community College with a major in pre-med. During her time at Bridgewater, she continued to be the pathological liar she is, and the fake suicide attempts got more serious. After all these attempts of suicides and all these lies, she was ordered to receive psychiatric treatment by school officials. And 1 year later, she just decided to transfer out of there and go to Wachusett Community College. And around this time, she met her future husband, Glenn Gilbert. After falling in love with Glenn, Kristen decided to continue her education at Greenfield Community College in order to be closer to him. Now, while she was still in school, she worked in a home health with the Visiting Nurses Association of Franklin County. Now, while she was working there as a student, she used scalding hot water to burn 60% of a special needs child's patient body. And somehow she was not prosecuted for this, and they just overlooked it. I don't understand how you overlook burning a special needs kid over 60% of his body. But in 1988, Kristen graduated from Greenfield Community College with her degree in nursing. Soon after, she eloped with Glenn Gilbert at the age of 21. After graduation, Christine was hired at Leeds Veterans Affairs Medical Center in Massachusetts. She was admired by her coworkers and was known as the social butterfly. Later, in early 1990s, she was even featured in a magazine that highlighted her as an exceptional worker, which seems that her career, maybe she was changing a little bit and maybe had, a little brighter future ahead of her. And then came her first child, Brian. And then Kristen took a maternity leave when she had Brian. When she returned to work, Kristen traded her usual shift to the midnight shift. During these shifts, she had an increased number of deaths under her watch. Now, these deaths were getting so noticeable, it got to the point where some doctors literally refused to have her care for their patients because they just did not trust her. Her co-workers jokingly gave her the nickname, the Angel of Death, because so many deaths happened under her care. And like we've discussed, this is some serious red flags being thrown up that these co-workers are just not taken very seriously. Kristen's marriage began to dissolve very quickly, and she thought her answer was to start lacing her husband's meals with drugs that she cooked for him. And these drugs would just make Glenn have terrible side effects that just he could not get rid of. He would become extremely sick, and Kristen just insisted taking him to the hospital. She supposedly made another attempt to poison her husband by injecting him with something that Kristen claimed to only be a saline solution. And I don't understand why at this point Glenn's letting her inject him with anything. In 1993, Kristen had her second child when she was 26 years old. She shared the birthday with Raymond, her second child. At the same time, she was having marital problems because she was in the middle of an affair. James Perrault was a security guard at the medical center she worked at, and they became entangled in a very serious affair. An increased number of deaths were still occurring on Kristen's shift, and other nurses were starting to take notice. Now, I don't understand how it took this long to see these red flags popping up underneath her, but anyways, they would later find out that Kristen was making patients go into cardiac arrest because she was injecting intravenous therapy bags with high doses of epinephrine. Epinephrine is a drug that often used to resuscitate patients when they go into cardiac arrest, which basically just gives the body a lot of adrenaline. In the case of the victims, they were not going into cardiac arrest, so the excessive doses they received of the drug would cause an irregular heartbeat or even a fatal rapid heartbeat. The odd part about it was Kristen was seemingly spring into action and tried to resuscitate the patients herself. As the death cases of the patients started to pile up, nurses began to notice that there was an oddly low supply of epinephrine, which resulted in an investigation. In an effort to throw off this investigation, Kristen actually called in a bomb threat to the medical center, and not long after, she quit her job completely, claiming that she got injured on the job. And as this investigation continued, the calls to the police were linked to Kristen eventually. She was tried and convicted in 1998 and was sentenced to 15 months in prison for making bomb threats. Slowly but surely, Kristen was also becoming linked to the deaths of her patients. She went on trial for the deaths of Kenneth Cutting, Henry Houdon, Edward Squira, and Stanley Jagodowski. She also went on the trial for the attempted murders of Thomas Callahan and Angelo Vella.